Hi, my name is Shay. It's January 6th, 2023, and these are my 2023 language goals. Before, actually, we get to those 2023 language goals, I'm going to do a very quick reflection on my 2022 language goals. So my primary languages in 2022 were Korean and Persian, and I also said that I wanted to dabble in Spanish. So I definitely dabbled in Spanish. I actually, in August, started a little Spanish challenge with some friends at a local language exchange, and I put 99 hours of input into Spanish between the middle of August and the last day of December. So I almost reached 100 hours of input in Spanish. And for context, for the rest of my languages and how those went, that is the most time that I spent with any of my languages. I absolutely fell in love with studying Spanish. It's something I kind of knew was going to happen, and that was part of why I was putting it off, because I knew that when I started Spanish, I was gonna feel really enthusiastic about it. And I knew that my other languages that were a little bit plateaued, it was gonna be really easy to let them fall to the wayside, because it can be hard when you're at a plateau to want to continue to push forward. And if you have a fancy distraction over here, then it's really easy to let yourself focus on that one. On top of that, being a new language, which gives you that beginner sort of enamored feeling where things are easy and you're always learning something interesting, Spanish is especially easy in the beginning stages for a native English speaker, because it's much closer to English than Korean or Persian are. So I get all of these free words, lots of things just feel natural, especially because I went to school here in Canada, so I spent a number of years studying French. And I also did do a little bit of Spanish at the beginning of university, although I never reached a point where I could even have a conversation. But Spanish just felt really good. So that's how my dabble language went. It became my primary language in the last 4.5 months of the year. My Korean was going really well at the beginning of the year. I was doing quite a bit of reading. I was enjoying it, but one thing I'm really hoping for this year with Korean is to find my why again. A lot of my relationship with the Korean language and Korean culture has changed as I've spent more and more years have come between when I lived in Korea and now. And I sort of am looking for that why again. I'm looking for something to grip me and to make me really want to spend time with the language. I do love the Korean language, and I would love to spend more time with it, but I find myself consistently choosing other things. And so I'd like to dive a little bit into that, because I was really enjoying it when I was doing it at the beginning of the year, when I was doing lots of reading. But I just sort of stopped, and that was long before I started Spanish, so I don't think that was the reason. As for Persian, I spent a good chunk of time in March doing Persian, and I felt really good about it. That was right at the beginning of when I was tracking everything, and then I sort of fell off the wagon. I think I did 30 hours in March in total of Persian, so that includes reading and everything. And then after March, I did very little, and that's silly because friends of ours actually immigrated here to Canada from Iran in the summer, and I spent lots of time with them, and I probably had a lot of incentive to practice. I just, there's not no reason. I actually in April went back to work in person, and that definitely threw a lot of things off. I could no longer have a podcast or a lesson or something going in my ears while I worked on something on my computer. Instead, I was having to be physically present and fully mentally engaged all of the time. And that's not to say that I wasn't working when I was working from home. I was, but I was also often able to do things like make PowerPoints and be focusing on the design of it and have Persian going on in my ears, and that stopped being something I could do. And so yeah, Korean and Persian didn't go so great. I haven't checked how much time I spent in total on all of the languages, because I had a real shift at the end of the year away from focusing on lessons and reading and whatever else. I have a whole bunch of categories of study activities I can do. And I focused really much more strongly. I focused in on listening and watching. I think that those are the things, and I'll talk about this in a minute with my goals for this year, those are the things that I really need to be engaging with. So for context for how the year went, I spent, like I said, 99 hours in Spanish, doing Spanish comprehensible input. I spent 22 and a half hours doing Persian comprehensible input, and I spent 9 hours, I think. It might have been 7. I'm gonna put it on the screen somewhere, whether I like it or not, but I spent 9 or 7 hours doing Korean comprehensible input for the entire year. So, there is one other thing that I did this year language-wise that I will briefly mention, but is not particularly important. I started in, it might have been March, because it was, I think, right before I was supposed to go back to work. I started to do some Ukrainian. I was mainly just doing it on Duolingo. And the reason for that is that I work in immigration, sort of. I work with immigrant and refugee families here in Canada. And while many of our existing communities that have immigrated or are currently refugee families here, they already have good language supports in the organization that I work for. As far as I knew, Ukrainian was going to be an underserved language. So I thought that that might be something I could contribute. But ultimately, when I actually went back into working in person, that just didn't play out. And so I kind of let it go for now. I was really enjoying it. I like learning Cyrillic. It's cool. I just like writing systems. In general, when I spend any amount of time with the language, I kind of feel like I've become a little bit acquainted with it and want to spend more time with it. So eventually I'll probably come back to it, maybe not to learn all the way through, but just to spend some time with it. But right now it's not a priority for me because it's not a priority for what I'm doing in my life. It's not gonna help anybody and it's not gonna help me, and it's getting in the way of some of my other goals. So there's that. So now on to my 2023 language goals. They are sort of a reflection of what happened in 2022. I figured instead of fighting it, I'll follow it. So the largest goal I have is with Spanish. And all of these language goals are going to be focused around listening and watching comprehensible input content. I'm not worried about reading. If I do read, that's great, but it's not going to be part of my goals. It's going to be a reward for going through, meeting my goals, and getting better at the language. So, hi bud. My cat just went through his cat door. I don't know if you could hear that. So the first goal is with Spanish, and that is to do 401 hours of Spanish comprehensible input this year. 401 because I reached 99 in 2022, which is very annoying, but it's fine. So 401 will get me to a total of 500 hours of Spanish input in 2023. Now this is, I'm hoping, a low number, because I think the further on that I get, the more I'll be able to access content that that I don't need to be as focused on. I don't think the passive, putting your phone under your pillow and listening while you sleep does anything. Right now, a lot of what I'm watching requires some visual to understand what's happening. I do think that if you reach a point where you can listen to a podcast while walking to the university. I'm in university, by the way. Once that is sort of unlocked, that listening without watching, then I think I'll have a lot more opportunities to engage with the language and then get more hours into my goal. So hopefully that's a low number, but 401 hours of Spanish comprehensible input, that's goal number 1. Goal number 2, I'm gonna do this. Maybe I won't, I prefer to just gesture this way. This is goal number 2. My next language goal is for Persian. So Persian is my partner's native language, and I have a lot of opportunities to engage with Persian. I should more. Neither of us make it really the priority that we probably, I don't want to say should, maybe. Should's not a good word, but we don't give it the priority that we could. So this year I do want to give it a bit more priority, and so my goal for Persian is 150 hours of comprehensible input. I'm assuming that I will be editing in some words here or something. If I don't, then this just looks like a strange 150 hours. That's the goal for Persian. Very straightforward. Again, nothing specific that I am planning to do yet. I'm gonna give more updates over the year, hopefully, so you can see what I'm actually focusing on. But in this video, that's not the point. This is a broad overview kind of video. An automatic cat toy just went on directly behind my phone. It's not that loud, but it's a little bit loud, so if you can hear that, I'm very sorry. But I am going to continue because I have tried to unplug it and apparently that doesn't turn it off, so I don't know. Finally, my last language goal is Korean. And as I mentioned before, the big thing with me in Korean this year is finding my why again, which sounds really dramatic, but it is true. I don't engage with as much Korean content as I used to. I don't have any immediate plans to go and live in Korea anymore. So I do still want to study Korean. I like the language. When I do interact with the language, I really enjoy it. I just haven't been doing that, and I understand why I'm not prioritizing it. So this year, it is my lowest priority language, but I still do have a goal, and that goal is 75 hours. Now, 75 hours is not a lot. Again, my hope is that as the year goes along and I'm engaging with it more, that it just becomes easier. Not even language-wise, but once you start to do a habit, right? Once you start to do something more consistently, apparently, supposedly, it becomes easier. That has not been my experience, but that's not that important. So that's basically it. I'm sure that there's stuff that I've missed out on, stuff that I've forgotten, but frankly, my language goals this year are really simple. In previous times, my focus was on, I want to be intermediate or upper intermediate by the end of the year. I don't think that that was very useful, and I made a good step in the right direction when I said, no, I want to focus on what I'm specifically doing, the steps I'm taking. And so then I said, I want to finish this book, I want to go through this program. I still don't think that that was the best way to set my goals. Is number of hours the best way to set my goals? I don't know, but it's worked really well for me since I started Spanish in August, and it's what I'm gonna give a shot. So thank you for watching today. Appreciate it. Please let me know what you're doing for your languages. If you're doing languages, if you're not, then that's fine too. I feel like the people who watch these videos are the people who make them, but maybe not. Or maybe not the people who make them, but the people who make language goals, right? So let me know what yours are. If you made a language goals video, please put it below in the comments because I want to watch them. That's what I do in my spare time when I'm not studying languages, is I watch videos about languages. So I would love to see yours. And yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you hopefully very soon. Bye. I can't stop moving my hands. I am so sorry if that's annoying to you.